The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, this is Scott Murray with the PASS Business Intelligence Virtual Chapter, and we're excited that you have joined us today. We have Jessica Moss, who's a Microsoft MVP that's going to present on Power BI and creating custom visualizations. But before we get into the presentation, we of course have a couple introductory slides and some announcements from PASS that we do want to mention. So just bear with me for just a minute as we go through those. Of course, coming up with the up-and-coming PASS Summit that's going to be taking place in just I guess about 4 or 5 months now in October. And of course, there's still plenty of time to sign up. And one thing I'll mention about the PASS Summit is the actual sessions are selected by your peers. There's groups of volunteers that actually go out and they select the sessions based on speaker information, based on the abstracts that were submitted. And it's a great opportunity, of course, for learning. Also, something that's very important to PASS is voting for your board of directors. And in order to vote, you'll notice there's a middle section there that's voting eligibility. You have to complete an update to your profile in order to be able to vote in the Board of Elections. And of course, it says here voting is completely private and such. So again, that's coming up, but what we want to encourage you to do now, make sure you update your profile on PASS in order to be able to make that vote. Of course, we're the Business Intelligence Virtual Chapter, but there's plenty of other virtual chapters, and you can join as many as you wish and attend their sessions, of course, too. There's some that are very, what I would call functional in nature, meaning like business intelligence, business analytics, and then there's others that are focused on specific locations and specific different areas like that, such as women in technology. So definitely lots of chapters for you to take advantage of. And this is just a list of some of the upcoming presentations that are occurring. There's one actually that's, it looks like at 1300 UTC, so you could jump on that one later today, the virtualization one. And then again, there's plenty that are the rest of the month of May. So be sure to take those in when you get a chance. If you want to register for those, you can always go out to the PASS website, and that's how you're going to get to those. In addition to the actual virtual chapter meetings, of course, there's a SQL Saturday events. If you've never taken advantage of these events, you're missing out. Generally, they're free training. A lot of them you got to pay for lunch, but it is well worth the lunch fee in order to go to the SQL Saturdays. And there's a breadth of different opportunities for learning there. Again, I can't stress enough how those opportunities are available for you to take advantage of. And of course, volunteering opportunities. There's always opportunities for you to help out with PASS. Again, as I mentioned earlier about the folks that pick out the summit sessions. That's one opportunity, help with virtual chapter sessions. There's plenty of things that you can help out to. If you ever want to get involved, go to volunteer.sqlpass.org and they'll get you put in touch with the right individuals to where you can help out. And then, of course, there's always ways to stay involved. You can use LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and then, of course, the PASS website are all ways for you to be able to stay involved with the PASS organization. So I'm done with my announcements. I'm going to, at this time, go ahead and turn it over to Jessica, who's going to present for about 45, 50 minutes. And then, of course, if you have a question, go ahead and post that in the Q&A area. Well, as long as we have time at the end, we'll go ahead and answer those questions in the Q&A area for you to be able to ask those questions. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jessica, and if you'll just take a breather for us as we go ahead and transition over to her, and then we'll let Jessica take over for our presentation. All right, there we go.
Great, thank you so much. And to second the intro, definitely get involved and check out some of those other virtual chapters. They are so beneficial for you. But the training that we're going to be talking about today is going to be our how to create a custom visual in Power BI. Um, and as we mentioned, my name is Jessica Moss, and I am a Microsoft Data Platform MVP from 2008 to the present. I am a data warehouse and business intelligence architect. So between those two things, I really enjoy sharing what I've learned as a data professional in different industries and companies, and really sharing the information. Some of the other places that I share besides webcasts like this are Twitter. Jessica M. Moss is my Twitter name. My website listed in the middle there, and then over on the right you can see some of the books that I have helped author over the past several years. But what we're going to be talking about today is Power BI and custom visuals. We'll do just a very brief overview of Power BI and how visuals fit into the entire ecosystem of Power BI. And then we'll dig into the custom visualization side of things, what those are, how we're able to develop those, and then use them. So actually exporting them and importing them into our design studios. And then finally, submitting custom visuals. So if you're very proud of what you've done, you can actually submit those up to Microsoft to be included in their visuals gallery, and people outside of you and your organization can actually use them. Of course, we'll have Q&A at the end. Feel free to go ahead and put those in the Q&A box as we go through, and when we hit the end, we will answer as many as we can. So starting with Power BI. Power BI is a recent addition to the Microsoft Business Intelligence stack, and this is really meant to be a self-service reporting and analytical tool. It allows users to really interact with their data to answer questions that some of them they might not have even realized they had, but as they dig into the data, they may even come up with more questions than they originally had. When you look at the entire set of Power BI, it's, I like to actually call it an ecosystem, in that it contains a series of tools, services, which allows you to access this information and this reporting interface no matter where you are. The diagram that's shown here is actually taken from Microsoft's Power BI website, and it shows you kind of the flow of information and how it goes through. In that you start with your data on the left side. They have a series of content packs that are already available for you to where you can connect through if you have any kind of service. For example, Google Analytics is a big one that people use. MailChimp, we'll see a few of them as we go through our demo, where you can actually connect your account up and bring in pre-filled reports with your information. Or if you want something a little more custom or for data that's not available, you can use Power BI Desktop. It's going to be your on-premises tool to be able to create those reports. You publish those up to the Power BI service. That's the web service we have. And from that service, you can do some authoring of these reports, these visuals as well, and you can interact with data that you have even within your organization through the gateways. And then, of course, getting that information out, there are mobile apps, you can use it through the web, so there's so many ways of getting the data through those. When it comes to Microsoft's BI ecosystem, or their vision, this is a diagram that was taken from Jen Underwood's blog. It was announced last year at the PASS Summit, and really shows how Power BI is fitting into the entire setup for reporting with on-prem reporting services and cloud-based Power BI, and how you can bring everything in and then access it from all of those different angles as well. So when we dig into what Power BI actually is, it contains what I consider 4 different elements. We're really at the high level, we have our dashboards, And dashboards are going to be your summary of information where you really highlight things that are important that will draw people's attention and really get them some information that they need at a high level. The dashboard contains visuals. Visuals are going to be your charts, your graphs, the things that you actually want to be looking at. Now each visual is actually stored within a report, and a report can contain multiple visuals. And as you create your reports with your visuals, if you like them or think that they're worthy of being at that top level with the dashboard, that's when you pin them up to that visual. But at any point you can click into that visual and drill down into that report. And then of course within the visual itself, that's going to be connecting to data. The most important part, that's what you want to be seeing. So when we talk about those visuals, which is what this session is about, there's all sorts of different types that they have already available within the tool itself. A lot of them are the ones you're familiar with: bar charts, pie charts, line charts, maps, tables. Really any way of showing information is going to be a visual in this case. You can switch back and forth between any of those visual types, checking to see, and it may add or drop a few columns depending on what it needs and based on your data set. But as you switch back and forth, you can change the data that's actually being included, and then any of the properties that that visual uses as well. So what's so exciting about visuals is the way that Microsoft and Power BI have created this is that they've open sourced the code for all of these visuals. So this allows you to, number one, create your own visuals that you could use. But number two, you can share those out to anybody else who will use them. And actually, the way that Microsoft has allowed us to do that sharing and to get new visuals is the Power BI Visual Gallery. And you can see the link at the bottom of the screen is visuals.powerbi.com. And you'll see, I think there are up to 40, 45 different visuals now that are out there and available for you to use as well. Highly recommend you go out there and check out those visuals. So let's just do a quick demo of Power BI. Just wanted to highlight a couple of those visual pieces so that we know where we're going. This is the Power BI web service, so there is already dashboards, data, visuals, everything connected up to this environment. And just to kind of see the interaction here, this is a Google Analytics content pack that has been hooked up to a blog to be able to show information. And you can see how long people typically stay, how often they come, or what day of week. Overall, how many hits you have over time. And all of this is in that top level dashboard. Along the bottom you have different tabs, so you can flip through and see different types of data as well. And as we're flipping through, you're also seeing what those different visuals are. And if we go ahead and edit any of those reports, I just click that Edit Report button up at the top. Over on the right, you can see that visualization pane that contains all the visualizations. As we mentioned, certain things like our bar charts, our columns, our lines, pies, maps, so on and so forth that are listed there. And those are what each of those are within those reports. Very quick overview of Power BI, and now we can get into custom visuals. So if you are interested in creating your own custom visuals, you can go ahead and do this by signing up for the Power BI service. It is free with your work email address, or you may even have an account already within your corporate infrastructure if they've signed up for that. And on the Power BI service itself, they have a DevTools link. We'll go ahead and show you how to get to that. And you can also see any of the code that has been created for the other visuals that are out there on GitHub. It's on the Microsoft account, and it's the Power BI visuals or repo that you can download. That's going to give you the code of all the visuals. You've got a development environment in there, a playground that you can work with, and also a set of test harnesses so you can fully vet the visual that you've created. And all of this, when you put it together, what you're really using is the iVisual interface. That's the what Microsoft's given us, and that's what allows the visual to communicate, interact back and forth with Power BI. The language that they use to, or that we're going to be using, is TypeScript to create those. Any kind of image library, probably the most common is D3, but there are some others that are being, the most common within the visuals that are out there today for Power BI. But there are a few others that we've used, and any of them that are out there you are more than welcome to use within the Power BI visual. And then finally CSS for your coloring and formatting. When we go ahead and start to create our custom visual, there's really going to be 3 different functions that do the work for us. The first one is going to be your init. That's going to initialize the visualization. So when you first pull it onto the page, you're really setting up your initial DOM structure, anything that will not be changing as you change data or any of your properties. And this is a great way if you're having any performance issues with your visual. See if you can move anything into this init function, because then that's going to just happen once instead of every single time. Which brings us to update, which is what happens every single time you make a change. And this change could be if you change the viewport, so the size of the visual, where it is, the data that is being used by the visual, so that's from your data mapping, your columns, or anything like that. And then your style, so your colors or your properties. Really any change that you make when you're doing this visual, it will be calling that update function. So that's going to be redrawing the lines, recalculating the data if it needs to, and so on. This is where the meat of a lot of your work is going to be. And then finally you have your destroy, which is when you remove the visual from the page, what it's going to clean up so that it's not leaving anything left over for Power BI. So as you would expect, init is called once, update can be called many, a lot of times, and destroy will be called once at the end. Few other important objects to be aware of as you're working with the iVisual object is number 1 is the data view. This is going to be the object model, which stores the data itself, or sorry, representation of the data. So essentially we need to have an intermediary layer between whatever your underlying data is and how your visual uses that data. And so the data view is how we manipulate and use that data. There are several types that you can use with your data view, which describes how that information looks. The most common type that's out there in our visuals today is a categorical. The table is used often, and once in a while matrix is used, and there's definitely the door open for additional types to be included in the future. Data roles is going to be your next step, and this is what the fields are that the visual expects. So within the data view itself, that's going to say what type of data it is, how it looks, and then the data roles will say what the fields are that we actually care about. So if you think of a pie chart, you may just have one value that will be the display, versus if you had a KPI, you may have a actual value and then a target value. So we're going to specify that. And our data view mappings will say what those fields are going to look like, the data types and the information coming back from it. And really what this is using, the iVisual, is it's a static converter pattern where it's mapping that data view from the underlying data set to a view model which allows D3 or whatever your image library is to access that information and display it. A few other objects that we're going to be looking at, and we're going to walk through all of these within a sample code. The first one is going to be our selection manager, or next one, excuse me. This is the object used to perform actions based on a user's selection. So if we're doing any kind of highlighting, anything special, if we click another visual, or if we click this visual, how we want to pass it to other visuals. So really that interaction there. Tooltip Manager will allow you to show tooltips if you're hovering over a particular area, say on a map, if you want it to pop up the name of that area, you can use that with the Tooltip Manager. Text Measurement Service allows you to access the properties of that text field, changing anything of the information for those properties. And then how we do that formatting is going to be our value formatter, which allows us to format labels, tooltips, or text within that visual. So really change how that object looks. Okay, so now that we've blasted through what those actually are, let's go ahead and look at how we would create this visual. So if we go back to our Power BI service, we are going to go ahead and open up our DevTools by going to our settings icon up in the top right area. Lots of different options, and the one that we are concerned about is DevTools. So I'm going to go ahead and click DevTools, and it will open up a new window for us where we can look at a visual that's actually already been created. So they've provided essentially a template for us that is a very simple table that will show us the start of how one of these should look. Up in the top left area, that's going to be where we put our TypeScript and we interact with our iVisual interface. Our bottom left is going to be our CSS code where we set up our colors. And the right side is going to be the preview, and they have some data sets that are available for you to test and how it's going to look on the screen. So just for fun, if we go ahead and compile and run their sample visual, we're going to see it appear on the right side. And we can go ahead and change some of the data sets and see how it looks as the data changes over time. This is a table model that they have. So what we're going to go ahead and do is copy over, or we'll go ahead and open up a new DevTools window that I already have open with a sample visual that I've created for this demo. And in this case, what we're creating is a goal thermometer. So it's similar to a KPI in that we're going to have an actual value that gets passed in from a data set, and we're going to have a target value that we're going to compare it to, and based on how close that actual is to that target, we'll show how high up the thermometer is going. So for example, if you wanted to show a fundraiser and how close you were getting to that, you would use this type of visual. So let's walk through each of these areas, and then we will play with it a little bit and go ahead and use it within a actual report. So to start with, as we can see, we have our view model, as I mentioned, that we'll be using throughout to look at our information. And then at the top here, this is where we implement iVisual. That's going to be the most important thing that we have there because that gives us all of our functions that we need. And then we start by defining each of those areas that we talked about. Now this is at the class level, so these are the properties that can be accessed throughout any of the functions that we mentioned earlier, which are the init, the update, and the destroy. So the first one is going to be our data roles. This is going to be what the information is that we want to get from our data. And in this case, it's going to be an actual value because that's what we're going to use to draw the thermometer and make it filled up as much as we can. Next, we have our data mappings that we mentioned. And data mappings will be how we want to see that data. So in this case, we're saying that a value that we care about, the actual value, is going to be our actual within the visual itself. And the data reduction algorithm here is going to be if we had so many data points that we couldn't actually see all of them, how we want to handle showing that information. In this case, we're just showing the top, however many that Power BI thinks that it can handle, and then as you scroll through, it will go and pull those out. And then the next section that we're going to have here is going to be the objects within the formatting pane. So along with being able to pull in data, we also have the option to change properties about the visual itself. A lot of times you'll see things here like changing a title, if you want to display the title or not, maybe some colors. In this case, just for this simple example, because I wanted to show two different aspects of data here, I'm going ahead and putting the target within that formatting pane so that we can specify what the target is within that value. The next section we have here is the converter. So that's where I was talking about changing from the underlying data into something that your image library, in this case D3, will understand. And all we're doing here is looping through those values that are coming back, the categories, the series, and putting all of those values together. For this particular visual, we only care about one value. We're not going to show it, show multiple thermometers or anything like that. So we're just adding all of those values up so that we have that one value. So everything here gets put into that data view so that we're able to do that. The next section that we have will be our initialization. Remember, this is called the one time when that visual is initially created. And this is where we set up the interaction between Power BI, some things, so color palettes, host containers. And the portion where we start talking about the SVG layer, that's going to be our image side, where we're actually drawing the initial object for the thermometer. So this is going to say what those elements are, our general SVG area, and then down at the bottom, a couple of circles, some rectangles, and text to be able to show those different options. So that gets set up as soon as we put the visual on the page. And then we move to our update. And update is called, as we said, for anything that's going to happen as we change any kind of object within the visual. So what we're going to see here is that we start by adding up all of those values that we retrieved from the view model that we saw above. We're going to do a little bit of logic where we grab the target value from the formatting pane and then decide what the percentage is that we've got, how much we've achieved from our goal, and how much is to go, how much is left. Once we've got all those values, we can go ahead and draw our items. The top circle will be our bottom area, the back rectangle will be the gray, and then the front rectangle is when we use those values of the percent to go and the percent achieved so that we can make the thermometer appear as it has raised as it needs to. And then we also have a text area within this visual to go ahead and display the percentage that it's retrieved. So that's going to be our update. The enumerate object instances, is how Power BI grabs the data, the properties from the Power BI screen so that it can use it within the formula that we just saw above. And down at the bottom, we have our CSS, which we've gone ahead and accessed from our objects up above. If you remember, each of those items were attributed to a particular class, and the class down at the bottom says what those colors should be so that those can be modified. So we can go ahead and preview this guy now by doing a compile and run. And let me go ahead, make a few changes. There we go. As the data changes, we can see that that thermometer changes its percentages over time and moves what we've actually achieved up and down for the thermometer. Okay, so at this point, we've gone ahead and created the visual within the DevTools. And you can go ahead at this point, if you're going to try to get this published out to the custom visuals gallery or share this out, definitely go through the unit tests that are part of that GitHub repo, download those and run through those. Once you've gone through that process and you're happy with it, you can go ahead and export your visual. On that DevTools website, there was an export button where you could pull the code out, and it is going to create a PBI viz file, Power BI visual file. Of course, fill out all the properties that you have there. You can add an icon, screenshots, and of course your contact information in case anybody has any questions or information that they would like to know. Then, once we've got it exported, we can go ahead and import that Power BI visual file into Power BI Desktop or the Power BI service. You could do that either by hitting the ellipses at the bottom of the visualizations area, or there's actually an import option under the File menu under the desktop. And of course, it's going to warn you, and you need to make sure that you are that you trust the developer who coded that visual, because it is an actual script. TypeScript is going to convert over to JavaScript under the covers there, and it can be dangerous in the hands of someone who is not as trustworthy as we are. So just be careful that you trust that developer. So let's go ahead and do that. Go ahead and export and import and use that custom visual inside of a dashboard. So we'll go back to our DevTools that we were looking at, and the thermometer code is there. And we'll go ahead and export that item. I've already got some of that information populated. The first version, let's go ahead and bump it up a version. We've got an icon and contact information. So we'll go ahead and export that, and it downloads it to wherever you've got your download set up to. In my case, it's just my desktop. And what I wanted to go ahead and do is just show you, if I went ahead, I'm going to make a copy of this and rename this just to be a zip file, because I always love seeing what's under the covers for these packages that they're moving around for us. So if we look inside of this zip file, what you're going to see is just a few items. There's a JSON file, but then in the resources, you've got your image file of the icon, the CSS, that was your bottom left corner, your TypeScript, which was the top left, and your JavaScript, which was converted over from your TypeScript file. So it really is just what you were looking at that gets included within that zip and can get imported into Power BI. So I always find that interesting to see what is actually being included there. So then we can go ahead and start using it within our Power BI. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Power BI desktop. Power BI desktop is a free download that you can grab from the Power BI website, and go ahead and install that down. And of course, with any Power BI desktop version that we're looking at, the first thing that we're really concerned with here when we're building a report is data. So we could grab data from a variety of different places, or recent addition is to just enter data in, which is perfect for demos like we're doing today, or you can actually copy this in from a different Excel spreadsheet if you'd like to. So we're just going to do a very simple category and amount. For categories, let's do some countries. And I'm just going to go ahead and dummy up some quick data for us. We've got North America with 500, South America with 1,000, and Europe with 750. Okay, and we'll go ahead and load that information into our Power BI desktop dashboard. So I've got some data, and if I go ahead and just click on those two values, we can see that yes, I do actually have that information in there, and by default it went ahead and picked a column chart for us. But what I'd really like to do is look at this in a thermometer like it's a goal. So I can import my custom visual by either going to the File, Import option, Power BI Custom Visual, or more likely, or what I tend to do more often, is click on the little ellipses next to the visualizations guy. Warning, warning, make sure you trust them. And from my desktop, we'll go ahead and grab the visual and import that. And we can see once we imported it, there is my visual ready to be used. And I can take that visual that I already have and switch that over to a thermometer. And we can see that it is using the amount, but obviously the amount there is no help whatsoever because we don't have our target set up as we would want it to be. So what I know, and remember this is typically we would want to have a target from a data element, but just to be able to show the different types of elements within a custom visual, let's go ahead and say our target here was 18, too high, 1,400. Ooh, bring it way down. Let's say it's, there we go, 10,000. And if we say our target is 10,000, that means that we have a 22.5%. But this still does interact with any of the other items or values that like we would expect any of our visuals to do. So we can go ahead and add another visual. This one is going to be at the category level. And we're going to go ahead and make this a slicer so that we can filter out what we're seeing within our thermometer. So right now we're showing everything, but if we wanted to just see how well Europe was doing, we could change that to select that, and we see the percentage went down to 7.5. Or if we were to look at South America, we could say that contributed to 10%, or then if we're looking at all of them, if I go ahead and clear that, everything with all the countries, we've achieved 22.5% of our goal. So we do still have that interactivity between the different visuals so that we can use it just like any of the other ones. Okay. And just to show one last time, if we were to go and look at the different areas, we've got our actual value there, which is set to be amount, and we could change that if we had a different value. And then on the formatting pane, under the General tab, that was where that target value was. And if we changed that target value to something other than the 10,000, say it is now 5,000, we can see how that changes the visualization as well. So we have multiple ways of changing that visual that's on there. Now if you go ahead and update this visual and upload it to or import it into Power BI Desktop, it will recognize that it's a new version. You do have to close out and reopen Power BI Desktop for it to pull in all the latest goodness that the new visual brings, but you can continue to overwrite and use those. Okay. So once you've used your custom visual and you're happy with it and you think it is the best thing ever and everybody wants to use it, you can submit it to be included within the custom visual gallery, which will be available for everybody to use in Power BI. If we actually go to that custom visual gallery, you're going to see the ones that are out there, and I'll highlight that as well. But all the information on how to submit those visuals are, the link is at the bottom, and really what you're doing is sending an email with your Power BI visual to the Microsoft team. They will evaluate it and upload it as needed. So just to show you the custom visual gallery and all of the exciting visuals that are already out there. Actually, a lot of these have been created and published by Microsoft, and you'll see who published each of them as you click on them. But there are some visualizations that are very simple and some that get very complex. Things like showing an image, which is great, all the way down to things like the synoptic panel where you can highlight different areas. And then one that I always love is the word cloud, to be able to show that. So you'd see quite a lot of visuals that are already out there today and available for you to use. Okay, and on that note, we can go ahead and start with some questions. Let me just find the questions pane. I'll go ahead and pause my screen there and open up the questions that we have. And we have just a couple of them that have been asked. Let me see what we have. First one is going to be, and if you guys have any more questions as we're working our way through the couple, please do feel free to post those as well. So the first one that we have is, can we do this custom visual development in Power BI Desktop or Visual Studio? If you download all the code from the Power BI repo from Microsoft, you can do your development within Visual Studio. And as you are going to unit test it and push all of that through to try to get it into the custom visual gallery, I highly recommend that you do go to Visual Studio so that you can use the unit testing. However, you can also do the development just as we did within the dev app tools or the dev tools provided through Power BI. You're just a little limited with the IntelliSense and so on that you can be doing. Next question we have is, do you have any suggestions on D3.GS resources for learning? That's a great question. As I started to go through, I definitely, D3 was the part that I was not as familiar with. I'm a BI developer. I used to code over 12 years ago, but it took a little while to pick up. The TypeScript was very easy to pick up. The D3 itself was more difficult. I just ended up Googling the particular type of thing that I wanted to do, and there really is quite a lot out there to be able to do that. So no real suggestion, sorry, but definitely Google it. There's lots out there. Next question we have, our company won't allow publishing outside of a company. How can we share the dashboard? So the dashboard itself can be exported out. You can well, publish it to Power BI if you want to restrict who is going there, or you can save it out as PowerPoint to be able to show that information. You lose the interactivity at that point to be able to do that, but at least gives you the ability to share that information that you have. How vetted are the visuals in the gallery? Are there any safeguards for visuals that make it in for public consumption? That is a very good question. I don't know for sure because it is a Microsoft team that's doing that. I do know that they review them before they get pushed up to the gallery. So it is my thought that they're looking at the code. I know they're looking through it to make sure it doesn't interfere with any of the other visuals or anything like that. So my guess is as they're in there doing that, they're going to also be looking for anything that might be malicious. And as you saw, the TypeScript files are, they're not large files. It's very hard to hide something in there. And they're not letting you call out to other assemblies or anything like that. It's got to be something that's available there. So I mean, I felt very comfortable downloading the visuals, but if it's something that is of a concern, you can absolutely contact Microsoft. They have a great forum. I'll go ahead and say that for everybody, is that Power BI, if you go to powerbi.com and go to forums, they have a forum for ideas if you have anything you want to see included. People rank them, and the Power BI team is so good about responding back to what they're working on, what they like, or what they think is feasible or not feasible. And the forum, it would be a great place for questions like this, because then hopefully we could get a Microsoft response for that. What else do we have? Can you control what is displayed in the tooltips of the visual you create? Could this be available to be entered in the properties once the visual is being used? That's interesting. You can absolutely control what is being displayed in the tooltips. That's one of the objects is the tooltip manager, and it allows you to specify what is being shown as you hover over that area. So for example, sometimes you want to show just the name of the category, sometimes you want to show the actual value or a percentage. To have it available to be entered in the properties once the visual is being used, I'm not sure exactly why you'd want to do that, because typically the tooltip is for different data points or different categories. So putting something into a property in the tooltip is more of a one-off versus for every element. Technically I think you could, but then you'd be showing the same thing on every data point or every category. So I think yes, but I'm not sure why you would want to, if that makes sense. But you can definitely change what is being displayed in there within the code. Which brings us to another question. Can you take someone else's visual and modify it? And absolutely you can. The visuals that are out there, the code is all under MIT license, so that you are able to take it and modify it. Of course, you'll have to read the exact licensing rules for what you can keep and if you have to license it the same way, and how all of that works. But absolutely, the GitHub site that is out there is has the full TypeScript that you're able to take and tweak as you see fit. Let me see, what other questions do we have? Can custom visuals in corporate confidential dashboards or reports be shared through content packs? Ooh. I don't know. I'm trying to think through that. So right now, custom visuals are at a report level. So if you were to import a custom visual, it would only be good for that report. The next report that you create, you would have to re-import it each time. So I've never tried to put it into a content pack, but that would be interesting. That's another one I'm going to suggest to go to the Power BI forum and post it and see if we get some answers from Microsoft or from somebody who's tried to do that before, because that would be wonderful. Okay, we're getting a few more questions in, which is great. Okay. Can we bring in data from SQL Server on the fly for the reports? Absolutely. One of the data sources that we have is SQL Server, and so the queries that you have there, it will access the report or access the database and bring it into the report exactly as you need it. Okay, and we got, is it possible to create a custom visual that allows the desired color of a bar chart item to be specified in the data set? Like a bicycle category should always be a particular color. Sorry, trying to think through that one. Is it possible to create a custom visual that allows the desired color of each item to be specified in the data set? I don't see why not. You would specify what the color is. It would just be another data point, and you could access it as you accessed. So for example, for the thermometer, we access the actual value, and it would be in the same row associated with that. And then within your D3 code, you would just set the value based on that. So you absolutely could do that within the code. You'd be overwriting any kind of CSS or anything that you had set up for it. But as long as you're aware of that, you I think you should be able to. Shouldn't matter. Oh, and I got to follow up on the tooltip to be able to control the display. Oh, I see. What we're looking at here is a general tooltip for the whole visual instead of a tooltip for the actual data elements. So like in a picture, you have a tooltip and it kind of explains what that picture is. In this case, you could have a tooltip that would explain what that visual was. Good question. I don't know. For that particular scenario, I would suggest that you'd use more of the description of that visual. If you think the user is not going to be really sure what's going on, it might be better to actually have that up front and center and explain it a little better versus the tooltips. It's easier to ignore that. But that being said, you might be able to do that. The tooltip manager, you should be able to set that up for anything within the visual. But tooltip manager would still be the way to go to look at doing that information. And as such, you could still update it with the properties if need be. Okay, and we've got one last question, and I do have a couple minutes if anybody has anything else here. And the last question we have here is about refreshing data in Power BI. Is it possible to refresh data as many times as you want, say every 15 minutes or every hour? Power BI refreshing is actually an interesting topic in that how you decide to do it and when you decide to do it and what can do it all varies a little bit. So it has changed a little bit. How often you can refresh it from the service side of things, and that's going to be on the admin side, is dependent on, one, your level of subscription. So how often you can do it is based on if you're using the free version or the paid version. If you're using it, and that's like a scheduled refresh. If you're using it through your Power BI desktop, you can refresh as much as you want because then you're doing that manually. From the service side, if you're scheduling it, of course you have to be concerned with your data usage as well to make sure that you haven't hit that more than you should. So yes, you can. Oh, and the other limitation is depending on what data set or data source you're connecting to. So for if it's on-prem or in the cloud and what the different types are. So yes, you can refresh it, but there's lots of caveats that you have there. I think that answers all the questions that we've got. I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Jessica, so much for taking the time today to speak and for answering all those questions. Great session. Just a quick reminder to everyone is that the session, of course, is recorded, and we will post it out onto the Business Intelligence Virtual Chapter YouTube channel probably in the next couple of days. It'll get uploaded and such. So thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.